Hey, Sam here from Sugar Spun Run, and today we are making eggnog cookies. All right, you have half a gallon of eggnog in your fridge, you don't know what to do with it, make these eggnog cookies. I'm not really a big fan of drinking eggnog, but I do love the flavor that it gives these cookies. I sometimes call these eggnog meltaways because the cookie really does it's so tender, it melts in your mouth. So for today's recipe, you wanna get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, grab yourself 2 sticks or 1 cup or 226 grams of unsalted butter. You want this to be softened. We're gonna drop this in a large mixing bowl, and we're going to add 1 cup of granulated sugar. That's 200 grams if you're using the scale, which you really should be. And just 1/3 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. That's like 66 grams. The brown sugar is going to add a really nice depth of flavor. So today's recipe could be made in a stand mixer using a paddle attachment if you would like, but I'm just going to be using my electric hand mixer today. And we'll cream these ingredients together until they're light and fluffy. All right, that's light, creamy, well combined. So now we're going to add our egg. You just need 1 large egg for this recipe, and ideally this should be at room temperature. I'm just gonna crack it in a separate bowl before I add it to my dough. Make sure there's no shell in there. Then we're also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Again, the eggnog itself has a pretty nice flavor, but there's only so much of it you can put into the cookie dough. So we enhance the eggnog flavor throughout the cookie by adding things like brown sugar, vanilla, and some of the spices that you'll see in a minute. So we'll go ahead and stir everything together until the egg is well incorporated into the dough. And then we'll add our eggnog. Mine is still a little bit cold from the fridge. It's okay if you don't set it out in advance, so long as your other ingredients are a good room temperature. This is 1/4 cup or 4 tablespoons. And I'm just going to drizzle this in while I'm stirring on low speed. Well, to the best of my ability. My bowl's sliding a little bit. And I want this to be nicely incorporated into the dough. It's starting to smell like the holidays around here. All right, we can slide this out of the way and grab a separate bowl for your dry ingredients. So for this recipe, I really like using cake flour. I have 3 1/3 or 375 grams of cake flour here. Cake flour is going to give you a really tender cookie, and you know how I talked about how it's like a melt away? That's what's going to give it that real melt in your mouth feel. If you don't have cake flour, yes, you can substitute all-purpose. You would need 3 cups or 375 grams, but it really is best with the finer, more tender cake flour. So do with that information what you will. All right, we're also going to add a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And then for our spices, we're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon and just a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Go ahead and whisk everything together. Oh, don't forget the salt. Also need 3/4 teaspoon of table salt. That was close. Thank you, Nikki. If someone's paying attention. And we'll whisk that together. It's not me. All right, and then we're going to add this to our butter eggnog mixture with our mixer on low speed. And we'll usually add this in like 3 or 4 parts. We'll go ahead and add the rest. All right, let's take a look at our batter. You're going to want to grab your spatula, scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl because there's a pretty good chance you have some dry pockets hiding in here somewhere, and you want to get these all incorporated. Now this is a pretty sticky dough at this point. It almost is like bordering on being a batter more than a dough, but that's fine. We're actually not going to chill the dough. We can bake with it right away. In fact, let me go grab my baking sheet and then we will do just that. All right, so grab yourself a baking sheet. I just lined mine with parchment paper. And we are going to scoop the cookie dough by 1 1/2 tablespoons. I just do a level scoop, love this cookie scoop, and just drop it right on the baking sheet. The dough's going to be too sticky to roll or anything like that. And you want to space the cookies at least 2 inches apart. That way they don't bake into each other because they will spread some. Now you should get about 31 cookies total out of this dough. And once you've scooped your first tray, we're going to take this over to our 350 or 175 degree Celsius preheated oven. You're going to bake it in the center rack, and the cookies need to bake for about 10 minutes. Now, as soon as you take them out of the oven, take a clean measuring cup and use the bottom to lightly flatten the surface. This is going to give you a nice smooth surface for putting icing on your cookie, and it also just compresses the cookie and makes a really, really tender crumb. You do need to flatten these pretty quickly after they come out of the oven. You're not smashing them, just creating a nice smooth surface, level surface. I'm just going to move these to a cooling rack after they've cooled for about 5 minutes on the baking sheet. Once the cookies have cooled, you can make this simple eggnog glaze to put on top. You'll need 3 cups of powdered sugar, and then you're going to add as much eggnog as you need to make it the proper consistency for spreading over the cookies. I find I typically need 6 tablespoons of eggnog. That's what I have measured out here. I'm not going to add all of it at once because it's a lot easier to add more if you need it to be more liquid rather than add too much and then have to add powdered sugar to get it the right consistency. Whisk this together. So consistency wise, you don't want this to be too thin or it's going to run right off the cookie and it's going to take a long time for it to solidify. So I like it to be firm enough that once it's all smooth, if you lift your whisk out of the mixture, the ribbon that forms, seems to be whisked a little bit better, but the ribbon that forms holds its shape for a couple of seconds before it dissolves back into the bowl. So it shouldn't dissolve right away and it shouldn't hold its shape too long or it'll be difficult to spread. This needs just a splash more, just a little drizzle. All right, this looks great. So let me bring the cookies over. You will have more cookies than this. I just wanted to demonstrate a few. You don't need to watch me ice 30 some cookies. And you could just use a pair of spoons to put the frosting on the cookies. I just like to use my little mini cookie scoop. This is like a teaspoon of frosting. And just kind of drop it on the cookie and it will settle itself quite a bit, but I'll usually use my offset spatula just to sort of smooth it around. And I'm using my little teaspoon scoop, but I'm actually using more than a teaspoon of frosting per cookie, just to be clear. This one needs a little more. It'll take a little bit of time for the frosting to solidify. It usually takes at least an hour for me, but once it's firm, it is usually nice and firm and I can even usually stack the cookies. But again, that's going to depend on exactly how firm your frosting is. Another thing I like to do is after I have iced all of them, I will grate some fresh nutmeg on top. That's a really nice addition. If you like nutmeg, my sister won't touch it if I do that, so. More cookies for me. Let's go around and smooth these. And obviously I am not gonna wait an hour to eat these, but just so you have reasonable expectations of how soon you'll be able to dig into them. All right, that is how you make these eggnog cookies, my personal favorite way to enjoy eggnog. If you try it, let me know what you think. I really always do enjoy hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. All right, I'm not going to wait for this icing to set, but one thing I want to let you know is that if you bite into this cookie while the icing is still soft, the cookie is going to seem crazy sweet. Somehow, once it solidifies, some magic happens and it's no longer too sweet and it's the perfect balance. Still good though. These are good.